What is up, beautiful people? This is your girl, Nicole Denise, and we are back for another sit-down video. Now, two things, some housekeeping I want to say up front. Number one, thank you so much for following me for this Vlogtober season. It has been amazing. You guys have really showed up and been very active in the comment section. I appreciate that. You've been watching the videos. My watch hours are going up. Kudos to you. Thank you so much for being a part of this Vlogtober team, because it really takes a team to do this. Even though I'm putting out the content creators always want people to watch the content. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you guys for that. Second thing, this video is going to serve as my day 16 upload for Vlogtober. Yesterday, I took a break. I still uploaded though. I told you I was resting. But today, we're back on it. And this is something that I wanted to do, was have a sit-down conversation about intuition, hearing God's voice, and trusting yourself. It's like a 3-for-1, but these two subject areas all kind of intertwine for me into one grand epiphany, and basically how I live my life on a spiritual tip. So basically I wanted to share that with you guys, and hopefully you get something out of this conversation. So stay tuned and let's dive right in. So for starters, this conversation and this desire to make a video like this came about because I was reading this book that I ordered at probably about 2 o'clock this morning from Amazon. It was the same day delivery, and they had it at my doorstep by like 10 a.m. So it is this called Fast Like a Girl. And basically I was up and was winding down to go to sleep, but couldn't quite sleep just yet. And I was kind of feeling like restless. You know how you kind of just be moving around, tossing and turning a little bit. That's what I was doing. And so I said, let me turn on YouTube, and I just want to hear something. And this video came up by Dr. Mindy Pelz. I think that's how you say it. Pelz. That's what it looks like to me. Dr. Mindy Pelz. And she was on a podcast episode with this guy. I think it was called the CEO Chat or something like that. I'll drop the link below if you want to watch the podcast. It was like a 2-hour long podcast, and I know that it was something I can kind of listen to and kind of doze off, basically because of the length of the conversation. So with that being said, I turned it on, and immediately she starts talking about fasting, but specifically fasting for women, and how it's a different process for women when we fast and things of that nature, and why we fast, and how it kind of like balances out our hormones and this and that and this. Boom, boom, boom. So needless to say, I watched nearly an hour of this before actually going to sleep, because it had piqued my interest, because it was actually a missing link to a topic that I had been internally discussing with God about, like how I wanted to fast again, because I know that fasting is miraculous in my body. Like when I fast, miracles happen. And on a physical tip, like you guys know, if you've watched any of my previous vlogs, you know that I've recently been dealing with things like fibroids, having gut issues, all kind of stuff. And like for the past month, I'm like, I need to fast. I need to go on a fast. And mind you, I fasted in the past. Like I said, I've had great experiences with fasting, but I knew that I needed like an extra element, because fasting is not a one-size-fits-all, procedure or protocol. That's a better word for it, protocol. So it was just so interesting to me that this happened to be the video I clicked on, and it was the answer that I was looking for. And immediately when she says in her book, she was referencing her book, I was like, book? Amazon.com. That's one thing I love about being in America and being in the Western world, so to speak, is that I can order things. It's at my fingertips. Everything's at my fingertips. And literally I ordered it 2 o'clock this morning. By 10 a.m. this morning, it was at my door, delivered. So I started reading this book, and immediately, like I'm already on chapter 2, and immediately it was just the like aha moment. Like, okay, I'm not tripping. I'm not crazy. There are certain ways that our body functions as women that require a little bit of finessing, like a little bit of like specialized, customized care. And I always knew this, which is why when people always try to put a one size fits all to like approach to weight loss with me, or doctors would be like, just eat less calories, that does not work. And even she talked specifically about like how calorie deficient diets just don't work. As a matter of fact, it makes you gain more weight because you're eating more sugar. It was just a whole bunch of stuff. It was stuff that I already intuitively knew about myself, but because oftentimes, and she mentioned this in the book as well, women aren't listened to when we're like, no, but it's something else. People just want to, most doctors just want to push you a pill and get you out their office because they have a high roster of people that they need to see. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, your stomach hurt, you got a headache, okay, here you go, here's a pill, bye-bye. I'll let me know how things go in about 3 months. That's basically what it is. But I have always been an advocate for my own health, and I've always been a researcher. I'm a researcher. I will research some stuff. Sometimes it is to my detriment because you can have like very hypochondriac reactions to things. Like hypochondria is like when you start creating things, like any little pain, you're like, oh, I think I have XYZ, or I think I have this. But also too, it has become very helpful in my life because I almost become like an expert in things. So when I talk to people that are in the field, in this space, they know they can talk to me because I know their jargon. And also too, as a woman, sometimes people try to downplay your knowledge just in general. So even like, not just researching like medical things, but I've researched like my car. So when I go to the car dealership and I start saying they words, they be I see the men's demeanor change, and it's like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. You get what I'm saying? Because I have a car guy that I can call, and he'll give me the answers, and he'll tell me what to say. So stuff like that, I'm a researcher in that sense. But also too, going back to what I said, I have been having this like private conversation with God, like in my prayers, writing in my journals, just in myself, like, God, I need some answers and I need some solutions for this gut issues, these fibroids. You know, I've been thinking about surgery. I've been thinking about all the things that the doctor suggested. But at the same time, there's this very holistic, natural approach goddess who lives inside of me that's just like, girl, plants can heal you. Your body know how to heal itself. You just got to give your body what it needs in order to heal itself. So drink you some water, you know, fast. Like fast has been coming up in my spirit so much. So with that being said, I kind of want to touch on intuition, what it is, and how that is like intertwined for me with hearing God's voice and also trusting myself. So because I am a word girl and I'm a word nerd, we always gonna start with a definition of words. So I'm reaching for my phone. And so I looked up the definition of intuition, and intuition means the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Another definition says a thing that one knows or considers likely from instinctive feeling rather than conscious reasoning. So sometimes I always like to reference the old people from the church. They like, you know that you know that you know. Sometimes you just know some stuff and you don't know why you know something because there's no conscious reasoning behind it. You haven't thought things through. It wasn't critical. It's just something you felt, and it's actually beyond feeling, like you just know and you don't know why you know. That is your intuition. And especially for women, we have God has equipped us, let me put it like that. God has equipped us with a very sensitive and in-tuned intuition. And when you look at the word in tune and intuition, they start with the same thing. So it's really about being in tune with hearing your voice as well as God's voice. So that's why they kind of go hand in hand with one another. Intuition, hearing God's voice, and learning to trust your own voice and trust yourself. So the first time I can say that I kind of like tapped into my intuition was a very young. I've always been a very intuitive person, woman, girl, child. You know, I always was the one that was like the deep one. Like people would be like, oh, just ask Nicole, she knows the answer. And my answers would never be like shallow or rudimentary. It would be like, oh yeah, well, the reason why this is happening because it's tied to the meaning of life, and did it just very young. Didn't know how I knew all these things, but I always just be knowing things. And I remember this was like high school. I was at my friend's house, and it was some kind of gathering or whatever like that. And his grandmother came up to me, and we were talking, just talking or whatever. And then my friend, which is her grandson, came and told me later. He was like, my grandma said you can see. You a seer, you can see things. And I'm just like, okay. I ain't think nothing of it. I had to be like in 10th grade, 11th grade. And it wasn't until later on in life where I understood what she meant. Like, oh, you're intuitive. You're clairvoyant. You're all the things that people want to say. Some people say psychic, things of that nature. But for me, I have always just known things prophetically before they happen. And I know these words like clairvoyance, prophetic, intuitive, insightful, deep, all these things can have like a very woo-woo kind of feeling to them, where people kind of like run away from them, or, you know, they don't want no parts of it because it seems kind of like weird or kind of like spooky, or it makes people afraid. But for some reason, I have never been afraid of having this sort of like gift, because number one, I never talked about it. I kind of just went about my life, be like, oh, I know what's going on over there. Oh, I could read people. People like to say you can read people. I could read people, so I can tell by how somebody walk in, their energy, what they about to say. Sometimes what they, like, literally, it's like to this point, like I've seen things play out in front of me. I'm like, he's about to say this, and then she's going to say this, and then we're going to be here. And I see it just like a movie screen, and then it happens right in front of me. Or I'm also a very lucid dreamer. So like I have journals full of dreams that I've had. I've had dreams about celebrities. I've had dreams about people in my family. I've had dreams about people that I haven't met yet. I've had dreams about people that I eventually met. Like, it's just a part of who I am, this very intuitive nature. So I never knew a time in my life where I wasn't like this. So with that being said, enters young adulthood, and I'm noticing that people are coming to me like for the same thing, like wisdom and understanding and insight. The sun going down. Sorry about the shift in the light, y'all. But insight, and people are coming to me like, well, Nicole, what you think about this? Or I was always the friend where you come and you know you can get sound advice. And something that I always did with my intuitive nature and me understanding that not what I say goes, but what I says. What I say 9 times out of 10 happens. I would always have like a disclaimer for people, like, do you want me to tell you the truth, or you want me to lie to you? Or are you sure you want to hear what I have to say? Like, are you ready to hear what I have to say? And then I would, like the Bible says, test the spirit by the spirit. Like, some things are just spiritually discerned. You're not going to understand it on a surface level. So I was also very wise at a very young age about I knew who was ready to receive the message that I had for them and who wasn't. So if they weren't, I would keep it very surface, keep it very light, very, and then for those who were ready, the words would come, I would speak, and then it would be either tears or that head nod, like somebody hitting something on the head, like confirmation for something that you ain't told nobody, and this person is all of a sudden all in your Kool-Aid, all in your tea, telling you about yourself, and not in no like domineering way. Because I think sometimes too, like, I grew up in a church, in a religious setting, and sometimes when the prophets would come through the church, it would be very like, people were afraid to get like prophecies and stuff like that. But I never was like that. It was always like, hey, I think, or what you thought about this? Da-da-da-da-da. I would just be very conversational. It wouldn't be like, thus saith the Lord, and this and that, because it was never about me making a scene for myself. It was all about, I feel compelled to tell this person something. I feel an unction to say this to this person. I feel an unction to give this to this person. You know, so intuition and having that knowledge at the beginning of my voice and what I just thought was my voice came at a very young age. Now fast forward, I'm probably like a late teenager, probably like 18, 19, going into my 20s, young adulthood. And I'll say this about me and my experience with church. So I grew up in a Christian household, and Christianity, especially the type of church that we went to, it never rubbed me the right way. I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like I didn't quite belong. And it was mostly because of the people and not because of the message. You get what I'm saying? Like when preachers would teach certain things or they would say certain things, and not the ones that were just getting up there hooping and hollering, but the ones that would like go through scripture and be like, and this is what this part of the scripture means, I always would tune in. Like those are messages that I know that I remember. I remember even taking notes sometimes in church. I would tune into those messages. But the messages that felt just kind of like messy, so to speak, like, you know, people just get up in the pulpit and be preaching people business, I always kind of tuned those out because I'm like, you on some other stuff. And I knew that at a very young age. I knew whether somebody was actually being used by God or whether they was just up there, you know, putting on the show. Very early on, I knew what time it was. And I used to gravitate towards those people that were very like, I knew God was talking to them. And this is before I even understood what it meant for God to talk to you and what it meant to hear God's voice. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, in church, I didn't feel like I belonged, even though I took church very seriously because the way church was preached to me and how God was preached to me in church, it made me very fearful of God. And people used to say that you need to be God-fearing, you know, but I would be like, but why am I supposed to be afraid of God? And I still remember to this day what kind of switched things in my mind and made me be like, I don't know too much about these people and what God they talking about, but the God that I know that I serve and I listen to and that I follow and that it feels like it's in my heart is not this same God. And it was one particular preacher, and they were talking about, you know, when God returns, basically when Jesus returns for his people, and then all the people would have had a chance to know God and make the right decision and get saved, basically get saved before, you know, Jesus returns, Christ returns, right? So that was the message, right? And I was just like, I remember asking, like, I don't know if I asked the pastor, because I feel like this was a Bible study. I asked somebody, it was an adult, like, what about the people in China? Like, I don't know why I was so worried about these people in China. But I said, what about the people in China? Like, if they're not Christian, does that mean they're going to hell? And I can't remember what the person said, but I know they didn't answer my question directly. And it made me like have a side eye ever since that moment in my mind. It made me have a side eye to like, oh, you don't really know. And so it made me question everything. Do you actually be hearing from God? Like, or you just up there just talking? Like, I thought you was the adult. I thought you knew these things. Like, and they didn't have an answer. And they kind of like brushed over what I had to say. And I felt like in that moment as well, I had said too much. Like, I had revealed too much. It's almost like when you get older and people start to realize like, oh, she's smarter than she puts on. Oh, she's quiet, but she know what's going on. Like, when people start to realize that, it used to make me draw back because I'm just like, I don't want to overstep. I don't want to speak too much. I don't want to say too much. I didn't want to be the center of attention. I'm an introvert. I didn't want people to know like, oh, she be knowing stuff. But, oh, that's Nicole. Because usually I felt better when people were just like, oh, that's Nicole. That's Nikki. Oh, yeah. She's smart. She funny. But she just, you know, it was always just she's smart and she funny. Okay. And she cute. She's smart, she funny, she cute. Okay. That's it. But then when I would open my mouth and I would say certain things, I always would get like everybody would tune in and turn in and listen to what I had to say. And I remember when I got into college, there was a professor that told me that, like, I used to make sure I sat in the back of the classroom. I didn't say nothing. I just took my notes. That's if I came to class, because usually I just get my syllabus and come for the test. But this particular professor made us speak as a part of our grade. We had to interact in the conversations. And I remember I used to sit in the back of the classroom, and then I had to say something because I hadn't said nothing. And I go to speak, and it's like the whole classroom turns around and looks at me, and I'm just like, and here we go. This is why I don't be talking. This is why I be in my own world. This is why I stay on my square. This is why I be in my bubble. Because people be looking at you and don't be looking at me. Mind your business. That was kind of like my idea. And I remember after that class, the professor called me. She told me to stay back for a little while. And I was like, Lord, here we go. And she was like, she was just smiling at me. She was like, when you speak, people listen. You need to speak more. That's basically what she said. She told me that exactly. She said, when you speak, people listen. You have a very, I forgot how she said it. She said basically the way your mind works is very unique, and you have insight that other people need to hear. So when you speak, people listen, and you need to speak more. And I was just like, girl, I don't know what you talking about. I'm finna go over here. I'm just trying to get this grade and be up out of here, okay? I don't know what to tell you. But later in life, as you can see, I still remember that. So now, the church that I was a part of, this is going into me now hearing God's voice for the first time, or identifying that what I was hearing intuitively was God's voice. So the church that I was going to, like my childhood church, they had the pastor who was there, he stepped down, like he retired, and he put his daughter into the space of the pastor. That was a whole uproar because he had sons. It was a lot of drama. You know how they feel about women being pastors in most traditional churches, Christian churches. They ain't with that shit, because patriarchy is a real thing in church, especially in Black Christian church. Another story for another day. We ain't even got to go there. But it was an uproar, and basically she was the right choice, but it was just drama. It was drama. It was drama. It was drama from the beginning. But I liked her, and I liked her because she was a very outspoken Black woman, and it gave me like, I don't know. I'm like lighting up thinking about what's the word I'm looking for. It gave me like, oh, I'm not out here. I ain't crazy, because I be having stuff to say too. I just don't be saying nothing because I don't want people to be looking at me crazy. And I realized why I didn't say nothing, because the stuff that she was going through as the pastor, I was like, see, that's what happened when the doggone Black women be getting up there and saying stuff. Then she get criticized and all this stuff. I was like, that's why I be quiet. But it was something about her presence being up there that gave me hope, like, oh, one day I'm finna let loose and let these know what I got going on. Let them know what I can see, what I hear, and what I know. You know, it gave me hope. And then I used to like going to her like Bible studies, because when she led Bible study, I learned things about like breath work. They wasn't teaching that in no Black Pentecostal Christian church, okay? But I remember she had us like close our eyes and take deep breaths and kind of center ourselves. Like, this was my first time with like meditation, because she was actually teaching a series on how to hear God's voice. And I still remember this. I was a teenager and still remember this. And she was saying the best time to hear God's voice is between that stage of when you're dozing off and before you hit like deep sleep, like in that little middle stage. Y'all know that little, I call it like little twilight zone. That little zone that you get in where you kind of like, your body's still jerking, trying to get comfortable, but you're not quite asleep, but you're not quite awake either. When you're dozing off, that's usually when you can hear what God has to say to you, because you're settling down. So She was teaching us how to breathe, how to center ourselves, basically ground ourselves, how to be get in meditation. And she wasn't using these words. I didn't understand these words until later in life. But she was teaching us all these things. And I'm the type of person, which is why I prefer pastors and preachers who would like have scripture references and say, this is what this means. And they have points to reference. Because I'm going to go back and read what they talking about. I was never one of them people that was like, pastor said such and such, pastor, because I would see them people behind the scenes and I'm like, I don't want to regurgitate what they saying, because they not really good people. And not all of them, but the ones that had access to the pulpit, a lot of them was some hypocrites, and they were saying one thing in the pulpit and living a completely different life. And I knew that at a very young age. And I knew I didn't want to just say what they were saying, because I'm like, they saying stuff, but I don't really think they good people like that, and I don't want to fashion myself after that. So all the people that I kind of gravitated towards, which of course were the black women that got to preach, and there were black men too. There were black men. Like the pastor that stepped down and retired, I loved him. The one that put his daughter in place, I loved him. Great man of God. Just a great man, great father, great man. So yeah, I really like the preachers that would, have reference points so I can go back and read. So fast forward to this Bible study that a new pastor was teaching us about, like hearing God's voice and getting into that little space between dozing off and being completely asleep. I went home and I tested it. So at first, because all the things I had been taught about God and spiritual things, it was always like spiritual warfare and we're in the enemy. We got to fight the enemy and this and that. So it kind of scared me at first going there, but I still was too curious not to try it. So the first couple times I did it, like kind of tried to stay lingering in that space between like sleep and not sleep. It scared me, because you did hear things. But then, I don't know, I just started to I got brave, and I started to enjoy seeing, how long I could stay in this phase, in this little middle ground before I actually went to sleep. So, and then I would just journal and write down everything that I heard, or that I saw, or that I felt, or even things that I dreamed after doing that. I've always been a writer, so I would just write and I would journal things that I saw and I heard. So that was really my first taste of hearing from God. Or identifying that what I was doing, because I always journaled before that. Identify what I was doing as a part of me hearing from God directly. Because as a child, especially in the Black Christian church, sometimes they can make you feel like you're inadequate hearing from God, especially the adults. They're like, oh, that's you just a baby. You don't know. You gotta, and I get it. Sometimes adults just kind of push children to the side, girl, sir, ma'am, little boy, sit down somewhere. You don't know nothing yet. You know what I'm saying? But that's not the case. And I know for me, I have never been the type of person to shun young people or shun children when they got something to say, because even the Bible says, again, because I study myself, the Bible says from the mouths of babes. There are some stuff that it's going to be the young people that say stuff. Even Jesus, he was young. When Jesus was out here ministering and having his ministry, he was young. The disciples was young. So yeah, when I first heard about, from that Bible study, I realized that God's voice is not this audible voice, you would put in earphones, you would hear somebody talking audibly, but it's just basically your thoughts, and you feel this unction, or and you feel something, and then these thoughts come, and it's not thoughts racing thoughts or anxious thoughts, but thoughts that bring peace, or thoughts that give you an answer of what you were looking for. That's when I started to really realize oh, that's God speaking to me. And then also too, when I started to hear people and even hear myself say, I should have followed my first mind, or something told me, or I had a feeling that something like that was going to happen. That be God speaking to you. That be the Holy Spirit speaking to you. That be your intuition speaking to you. Whatever you want to call it, that is the unction of, that's your spirit trying to tell you something like, hey, this, or hey, that, or go this way, or do this, or do that, or here's the answer you've been looking for. Oh, you need a book, or you need answers? Here, click on this video. Boom, read this book. Answers you've been looking for. So I think God's voice is heard and interpreted differently for people, but for the most part, I feel like there are some steps to hearing God's voice, or if you want to be more intentional about hearing God's voice, I made like a little list for you guys to follow, or try. And I want to say this little kind of like disclaimer for like tuning into God's voice. I said, this is in my note, God is always speaking and guiding, but sometimes our receivers are not on the right frequency to receive, just like a radio station. So sometimes we're looking for answers from God, or we put out our prayers and our petitions and we're asking God for certain things, or we're seeking certain things and trying to understand certain things, but our frequency, our radio signal is not on the same frequency as God. We too busy on TikTok. We too busy on Instagram. We too busy in worrying about bills. We're too busy watching reality TV. And again, these are not bad things in themselves. But I'm saying a lot of times the answers that we are seeking are not in the things that we are focused on. That's what I'm saying. And a lot of times it's not a matter of, so now I need to cancel out all these things. Like I think people fight backwards with a lot of things. They're like, and they call it the devil. They say, oh, the problem with the world is all this secular music, or the problem with the world is all the reality TV. Cancel all the reality TV. No, it's not that. Just change your radio signal. Turn the channel. If you're looking for something from God, or if you're looking for a specific answer, just say you looking for something that has to do with tomatoes. You got to go research tomatoes. Why you over here researching hot dogs? Like, that's not how you get to where you're going. You want to hear R&B music, but you on the rock station. You only gonna hear rock music over there. And it's not the rock music fault or the rock station fault that you only hearing rock music. That's what they do. But you want R&B, like switch the channel. And I think that's the simplest way I could put it when you're trying to seek and hear God's voice. Like, you have to switch to things that where it's not that God isn't speaking. You have to switch your focus to things that'll help you hear or tune in to what God is saying. That's a better way to put it. And some of the ways that I do that, like when I feel myself getting a little like off center or not grounded or kind of anxious or worried, when I feel myself, being too human and not enough godly, because we're both human and we're God. That's what Jesus' example on the earth was. Jesus was showing us you have a God self and you have a human self. And sometimes in order to operate more in your God self, Jesus said it all the time. Jesus would say, I listen to what my Father says. But how in the world was he listening and getting the words from his Father? Jesus would get away from disciples. He would go spend quiet time. He would fast. He would pray to the Father. He would ask questions. He would go in nature. He would be outside getting fresh air. He would do everything to get away from the people that was talking all that foolishness, mainly the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but also his friends too. The disciples had some dumbass questions sometimes. If you really read the Bible, that's another story for another day. But these are some of the ways in which I tune back into the frequency of God and to the frequency and signal of God's voice. I meditate. I do grounding techniques. I do breath work. I get outside. Sunshine and fresh air and nature has a way of putting you back into just hearing God. You can hear God through the birds chirping. I journal. I read. I commune with others who are also intuitive or who I vibrate high with or have a high frequency, or our conversations leave me feeling light, or they make me feel more centered, or conversations that leave me like happy and full of joy or excited. Like, all those things get me closer to hearing what God has to tell me. And then I also speak my thoughts aloud, and I speak my questions aloud in groups, around people, and just outside when I'm alone by myself, so I can hear them. Because sometimes our mind will have things so jumbled up and muddled up, like we just don't know what's going on. We don't know if we're coming or going. And the best way to not hear from God is to have a whole bunch of thoughts going on in your head at the same time. So for me, I have to get all the thoughts out of my head, which for me usually is journaling or speaking them aloud. Sometimes I do a lot of voice memos on my phone. I say stuff. I vlog my life. That's another way that I come on. I have therapy where I can have an hour a week to speak everything I need to say so it can just get out of my head space. And then I realize once I'm clear, then the thoughts and the words and the affirmations and the confirmations from God, they come clearly. I'm tuned in now to the frequency. I'm on the right radio station. So those are some of the things I do. And with that, I learned to build trust in my own voice, because I feel like that is the whole point of Jesus's existence here on earth. And the example that he set out. Because not only did Jesus trust God and the words that God was telling him and how God was leading him, Jesus also trusted himself with the word of God. And I think a lot of times, especially religion and society and as a whole, has done us a disservice when it comes to like trusting our own intuition. And I get it. If you have a bunch of people trusting themselves, then you can't really control them and you can't guide them, because they're gonna be like, well, wait a minute, I could just ask God, and if we on the same page, I'm gonna move this way. And sometimes when it comes to society, you need people to keep order and to keep certain things a certain way. You need everybody to not think, and you need them to move along like cattle, or sheep, all them kind of animals that you can kind of just scoot along and they just gonna follow the next one in the front, or everybody, you get what I'm saying? They're just gonna follow the leader, basically. So if you have a whole bunch of people thinking for themselves, people think that's gonna lead to anarchy, but I think that is the making of heaven. I think that's what heaven, for the sense of the word that people like to think of as heaven, I think that's what heaven on earth looks like. Where people are confident in their voice, their own voice, and they're confident in their connection with God and their personal relationship with hearing from God, and they're confident in their strides of what they hear God tell them, and then their own, and they're confident, and then they move accordingly. They move accordingly to the voice. They move accordingly to what them and God has said with one another, and it's not no comparison to anybody else on the external, and there is no distractions, or there is no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no doubt, because I trust myself with what God told me. And I trust that I can trust God. People always talk about, oh, I just need to hear from God. And when they hear from God, they don't go with the word. Like, what you doing with the word you got? You ain't even move with that. And then you wonder why that don't happen. I was about to curse, trying not to curse. But anyway, Lord, they're gonna be like, the heathen is cursing while she's talking about God. And it's okay, because words are words. We give words meaning. That's a whole nother story for another day. We ain't even got to get into that. Okay? All right. I want to say that trusting yourself, like back to the beginning, what I said, I feel like trusting yourself and trusting your voice and building the confidence in your voice as a result of building your relationship with God and hearing God's voice and hearing the directions that God has for you specifically is a part of the human experience. I think that's the whole point of why we're here. I think that's why we had Jesus as the example. And I think that right there is salvation in the sense of what people are looking for. They're looking for somebody to save them. And I feel like once you tune in to the right radio frequency and you starting to hear God for yourself, and you're starting to trust yourself with the words that God has given to you, and then the intuition to follow those unctions and those being compelled to do certain things and say certain things and be certain places or give this certain thing or do this certain thing. Like when you start really tapping into that, I think that we're unstoppable. I think that's the whole purpose of why we're here on earth, to really see just how powerful we are when we're in tune. Because Jesus performed miracles. And why was Jesus performing miracles? Because he said, I listened to my Father. And then he went out with the plan. He went through with the plan. You get what I'm saying? And of course, the people, they started hating on it. That's why they crucified him. They were hating. But even Jesus said, and greater works shall you do. Like, we're supposed to be doing greater works. The miracles ain't stopped with Jesus. The miracles ain't stopped. So even now, bringing it back full circle to what I originally was talking about and what originally inspired this fasting lifestyle that I'm about to embark on, like for real, not that it was fake in the past, no, but having more knowledge of how to do this with my hormones as a woman, and also too, like with age and stuff like that, like how to, it's going to be miraculous. I want y'all to sit back, relax, and watch the miracles happen in my life. And it's not just weight loss. It's not just that. I'm going to revolutionize my whole body. Watch. The fibroids are going to be gone. Watch what I'm saying. No more fibroids, no more gut issues, no more other issues that I haven't talked about here, no more high blood pressure, no more all this stuff. Watch. Because I am tuned in to my intuition, I hear God's voice, and God has given me the tools. Period. And that is really all I want to come on here and talk about, even though I know that was kind of like long-winded. But I just wanted to talk about intuition, trusting your voice, and hearing from God. And I'll leave with this. A saying that I'm going to get it tattooed on me. It's going to be my first tattoo. Eventually. I'm still working up the nerve to get a tattoo. But it's a saying that I live by, a mantra I live by, and it's know thyself. Because when you know who you are, and you know whose you are, and you know that you were created for a certain purpose and a certain reason, and you were created with a certain and special set of skills, Liam Neeson, when you were created specifically for a specific purpose, when you know that, you are unstoppable. Can't nobody tell you nothing about you. Nobody from the outside can tell you nothing. Not when you hearing God for yourself. You devising a plan, you journaling, you meditating, you praying, you going out in nature, you getting your life lined up according to what you hear, you following your intuition, you trusting yourself, you building confidence and all of that. Child, you can be whatever you want to be. If you want to be a millionaire, or if you want to be a rap superstar, or if you want to be an astronaut, a pilot, or if you just want to live your best luxury soft girl life, all of it is possible. Just tap in. Tap in, sis. And that's what I'm going to leave with. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment below. What are your insights or your experiences with intuition, hearing God's voice, and trusting yourself in your own voice? What's been your experience? Where are you in that equation? How you feeling? Are you hearing God? Do you know if it's God? Are you trusting your voice? Are you learning to trust yourself? What's your intuition looking like? Or do you feel like what I'm saying is a whole bunch of hoo-ha? If so, comment below. Let's continue the conversation. So until next time, you guys, I really appreciate again for you guys tuning in. Please subscribe. Please share this video if you think it's going to help somebody. And until next time, I will see y'all later. Peace.